Welcome to the Catalyst Sale Podcast with Mike and Mike. Sales is a thinking process. This podcast will help you learn about what works in sales, how to hone your skills, and increase your success. I'm your host, Jody Mayberry, and this episode, we are continuing our series on the service areas Catalyst Sale provides. Essentially, we're looking at the problems that the Catalyst Sale team solves. This episode, we're talking about breaking through revenue plateaus. Mike Simmons, can you get us started on this topic?
Sure. I think we've all experienced plateaus at one point in our life. You know, some people might call them ruts. Some people call them plateaus. You know, they come in the form of fitness. They come in the form of a number of different areas. And the one that we're going to talk about today specifically is around revenue plateaus. You know, organizations will go through these areas where, you know, they'll see that rise from 5 to 10 million, and, you know, they'll hover around there for a while and then make the jump to 25 million. Or they'll be deeper into this, and it might be going from $100 million organization to $250 million organization when it comes to top line revenue. And most of the time, the things that got you to where you are today aren't going to get you to where you need to be tomorrow. You may see incremental changes year over year. It might be single digit growth, but that single digit growth isn't going to get you to the level that you want to be inside the organization. So you've got to find other means to either generate revenue inside your base, open yourself up to new markets. And one of the things we do at Catalyst Sale is help organizations break through those plateaus.
Well, and it's about plateaus is an interesting problem, right? Because a lot of times you can be very complacent with where you are. And you could say, hey, we hit this milestone. We're a $10 million business. Things are pretty good. And there's a certain amount of comfort in knowing that this is now a predictable business. And now we can just do some incremental growth and things will be great. But most people, particularly if you have investors and things like that, expectations are usually higher than that. And you really get into deciding what is it that we need to do differently to get to that next threshold. And when you're part of the process of getting it from, say, 5 million to 10 million, you've been on that journey and you understand what it takes to get you there. But do you need help figuring out what's going to take you to that next rung on the ladder? And that's really what we focus on in our practice, is helping, being sort of the estimate of the situation, where you are today. Here's what you're doing to get this result. And here are the things that we could take a look at to help you get to that next level, whatever that goal might be.
And I think it was Marcus Buckingham who wrote, "What got you here won't get you there." And I may be off on the author, but I think it was Buckingham. And, you know, what we do is we will work with an organization to identify gaps on the sales side, things that are impacting revenue, when it comes to three areas: people, technology, and process. And, you know, people could be that mix of hunters and farmers inside the organization. And I have said before, I'm not a real big fan of those two classifications, but you've got, you know, your traditional account executive, account manager, customer success. Maybe you need to diversify and specialize in individual roles. Maybe it's a leadership issue. Maybe it's creativity issue when it comes to leading the team. On the technology side, it could be a limitation of how people are using many of the technology components that make up a sales stack today. And when I first started in sales, I had Siebel, I had ACRM. That was pretty much it. LinkedIn was just starting. These days, I'm in LinkedIn, I'm in Sales Navigator, I'm in Slack, I'm in Salesforce. Depending on the client, I'm in HubSpot, I'm in FunnelWise, I'm in so many of these different tools that are out there, and there are more and more of these tools that are coming out each day. So we help organizations evaluate their sales technology stack, determine which tools are making an impact on the business and which ones are noise. And then on the process side, that's the thing that's really near and dear to our heart. We talk about the Catalyst Sale process. We've introduced our sales process in various podcasts. I think our first couple of podcasts highlighted each stage of our sales process. We spend a lot of time on qualification. But when we talk about identifying these gaps inside an organization, sometimes you quickly realize that not only, you know, there might be a process, but not everybody can communicate what that process is, or they might define it differently. They might be able to communicate the process, but they're not executing against it. There may not be the accountability measures put in place to hold people accountable. people get so focused on the dollars and keeping everybody happy inside the organization and not on how are we building something that can support scale. So just to bring that together, we will help through an interview process and engagement inside the organization, working to get to know the company. We will identify gaps and risks associated with technology, people, and process.
And this is something I think one of the things to note is that our experience really has been that this isn't a 6-month project. This isn't something that we have to spend weeks and months trying to coordinate the activities and so on and so forth. These are usually projects that we complete, I would say, from a timeline perspective within 30 days. And sprinkled across those 30 days are a series of the activities that we actually execute on. So Mike mentioned the interviews with getting different perspectives from people in the organization, sitting down face to face and talking to people about what they do, how they operate, what tools they depend on, what's working, what's not working. I mean, it essentially turns out to be about a 1-hour interview with people to really uncover what's really happening. Because Mike had said, while we have all of these tools, we've trained people how to use them. We have our CRM, it's in place. And then when we dive in, we really take a look at all that. Is what's happening today, is it really what you think is happening, and bridging that gap? And when we look at it objectively from the outside looking in, we can cut through a lot of that stuff pretty quickly. And we've been at it long enough to know how to filter out certain things. I don't want to call it the BS factors or whatever, but this essentially, we can get a very, very quick pulse on the health of a sales organization, looking at the process. Well, Mike, identify it's the 3 things. It's people, process, and tools, and technology specifically. And we've been able to kind of cut through the noise very quickly. And that's really what we want to help do for people. We're not looking for a long term, hey, let's really roll up our sleeves for the next 6 months and do this exhaustive study. We're talking about helping companies very quickly assess where they are right now, what the gaps are, and some action ideas, some action plans about how you can move forward. And it's less about I'll use the term tricks and gimmicks. If all we were into is teaching people how to sell the sales process, we would have a training program that's straight out of a box that says, here's our training program for learning the sales process. If we wanted to teach you social selling, we'd tell you how to build a better LinkedIn profile and how to leverage social networks. I mean, it's not about that. What it's about is helping you identify where you're investing money right now that is just going out the window, and also identifying the gaps or overlap where you have things that you have multiple investments that are trying to achieve the same goal, or figuring out where you've got those gaps. It's different with every company that we work with, but from our experience, having done this for a number of years, we can cut through this stuff pretty quickly.
And I think something that might help the audience kind of understand it, depending on your role, many of you have gone through post-mortems when it comes to product launches. This is kind of like doing a post-mortem inside your sales organization, but rather than do it through internal resources where there may be some political challenges with them getting the same kind of information, this is leaning on it, leveraging an external resource to come in and provide an objective point of view based on data gathered. And it's really important to do those interviews, conduct multiple interviews across the various aspects of the organization, because once you gather all of that data, or once we've gathered all of that data, we can start connecting the dots, identifying trends inside the organization, and use that analysis to cut through the BS that Mike was talking about.
There are many areas in life where we might need to reach out for help because we've hit a plateau. It could be weight loss or training for a marathon. I mean, there's so many areas, but this is one where maybe we don't quite know that we're ready, or we're unsure if we're ready to reach out for help. How do we know if it's time to reach out to Mike and Mike at Catalyst Sale to get help breaking through a revenue plateau?
I think Mike's hit the nail on the head a couple of times with this before. I don't know if he said this in a podcast before, but I know he says it around the office. Is it something that, when you're going through, you feel that energy of the organization where everything is just driving forward? Are you hitting those goals, those objectives that you've set out there? If you're not, if it kind of feels like you're on that treadmill, on that same rotation, then maybe you're at a plateau. And I would imagine most CEOs, CFOs, controllers, chief operating officers, those in the executive suite, those on the boards of companies know when the organizations they're working with have hit these plateaus. And one of the big challenges they run into is they've got to be really careful not to irritate the folks who are responsible for generating revenue in the business today. It's not about hey, we might be doing things wrong today, because as an organization, you're doing things well, you're in business, you're generating revenue. It's about where are there opportunities that we may not see because we're so focused in the business. Where are those opportunities that we may not see for us to accelerate growth and break through that plateau?
I mean, the real metric that we're all held accountable to is top line growth and profitability. I mean, it's a financial exercise. If you're a declining revenue company, or if you're a company that's just been flat quarter after quarter, odds are at some point, if you're at the plateau right now, let me put it to you this way, Jody. If you're at a plateau right now and you're not taking action to get off of that plateau, you're going to go one or two directions. And most likely it's going to be in the other direction. It's going to be, you're now going to become a downward spiral sort of company. And that can happen slowly over time over a period of years, or it could happen very, very quickly if you have a new entrant into the market that you're in that completely disrupts you. And so I think the thing that you really have to be careful about is if you start hearing things around your environment where it's like, no, that's how we've always done it, or that works, it's not broken, why fix it? Those are the kinds of things, maybe not in those exact words, but if that's what the mentality or the culture has become, where everybody just sort of comes in and pushes buttons and does their thing because they know what the expected outcome is, then that's probably an early warning sign that says we need to figure out how to do things differently, do them better, be more efficient, improve results, whatever it is, because the last thing you want to do is find yourself on an extended plateau.
And I don't know if this is a Cockrell quote or not, but I'll give him credit. If you're coasting, you're likely going downhill.
Found.
I think Lee said that.
He may have. Lee Cockrell says a lot of good things. Well, this has been very informative. If you do want to talk to Mike and Mike about getting help breaking through your revenue plateaus, you can find them at catalystsale.com or on Twitter at catalystsale. Mike and Mike, is there anything else you want us to know about breaking through?
I think what you'll be able to do is by the time this airs, we'll have the practice area pages defined on the website. So if you visit catalystsale.com, just look for the practice area pages and we'll have a dedicated landing page specifically around plateaus, how to identify a plateau and how we can help you hopefully get off of that.
Well, thank you, Mike and Mike, and thank you for listening to the Catalyst Sale Podcast.